This is a slushy maker. Has a 74-ounce capacity. It's a 100-ounce container, but you can only fill it 3/4 of the way up. So I was sent this to review for free. If you wanted to purchase one, it would cost you $180. They haven't paid me for this review, and my opinions remain low. So inside of the shipping box, we have the more colorful display box. It says 100-ounce vessel, cold drinks in 20 minutes, slushies in 35 minutes. Keeps drinks frozen up to 12 hours with no dilution. And it says it's 10 minutes faster than traditional slushie machines. Alright, it says pull this metal handle upwards to disassemble. Clean all parts before first use. So you pull that up and the vessel pops off the front. So the vessel has its own instructions. It says keep unit powered on during dispensing. Do not add solid ice or ingredients above 120 Fahrenheit. Move that to add liquids here. This unit does have an internal compressor, and they say before plugging it in you have to keep it upright for 2 hours so that the oil will drain to where it needs to be. And it's indoor use only. So volume for cold drinks up to 74, slushies has to be at least 30 to 74, milkshakes 22 to 42, cocktails 22 to 74, ice cream 22 to 42. Alright, so this guy is using R290 refrigerant, which apparently is flammable, which explains the flammability warnings I've seen on the boxes. It has 4 buttons on the control panel. This is the power button to turn it on and off. This button cycles through the presets, so we basically go from least cold to most cold, and cold drink, slushies, and then it goes up to milkshake, cocktail, and ice cream. Over here, you can manually set the coldness level, so the more you push the button, the colder it gets, and the more lights are lit as the colder it is. This button will turn the light on and off, and if you push and hold for 3 seconds, it will lock out the other control buttons. There's also a little tray here, a cup tray. It basically just kind of slides inside, and it says pull out, and it just kind of sits on the counter. Alright, the main thing you need to know from the manual is there is a minimum volume of about 22 to 30 ounces for it to have enough liquid to spin around and make slushy. There's also a maximum volume of 74 ounces in most cases, or for ice cream and milkshake it's 42 ounces because they need more air to mix into it, I think. Now, they do say you need some sugar, so they say the slush doesn't form well with like diet soda that doesn't have any sugar in it. So you have kind of minimum amounts of sugar, which isn't too much, it's like 9 tablespoons for 74 ounces, but it does need a minimum amount. And then you can't have too much alcohol because alcohol will keep it from freezing, so they have a maximum amount of alcohol you can have in as well. So if you put some pre-made mixes in, the alcohol content has to be below 16%. So it's not a blender. Do not put ice cubes or hard loose ingredients in. So like you can't just drop strawberries in here. It's a little tight with this metal release knob, but it does fit under a standard height set of upper kitchen cabinets. Alright, so this thing lifts up, this thing pulls out. I think this thing comes off as well, yes. And then this little condensate tray comes out as well. And I think we need to wipe that down with some soapy water. So according to the manual, all of these detachable plastic accessory parts are dishwasher safe as long as you do not use the heated dry function. So this guy here just has a kind of spring-loaded rubber gasket opening that lets stuff out the front. I was a little worried about liquid just coming out of this giant hole here, but they do have, a pretty heavy-duty rubber gasket in there. And this guy here has these guys that kind of grab these and pull it in and lock it in place. So it looks like it's a pretty good seal. Alright, reassembly is you put the condensate drip tray in, You put the auger on the front, and it has to line up with this little guy here. And then you put this guy here, arm, and this has to be up. Push it back, and when you push this down, it grabs it and kind of latches it into the seal there. And then the drip tray just kind of sits down there. Alright, I'm going to try this with a 2 liter of soda. It is 68 fluid ounces and it's 114 grams of sugar in there, which is actually close to the minimum amount. So the sugar content is where it should be, but not like excessively high. Alright, this opening is, relatively large, about a 1-inch square. It may be useful to use a funnel here, but we're going to try this just by hand and see how it goes. It's eminently doable. Alright, so that 68 fluid ounces is filled it up to here, so there's a gap at the top suitable for mixing air in. Let's turn this guy on. There we go. Alright, we turned it on. I saw some lights go up. I'm going to push the preset. Looks like it preset here to Slushy already, so that's what I was going to go to use the preset to get to. It says if we leave it there for a couple of seconds, it'll just automatically activate. Well, it did not seem to automatically activate. I'm going to push the preset button. Now it's solid on Slushy, and it is started. So the auger is spinning, and the compressor is going to cool it down. It says reference time 35 to 65 minutes, so I think I'm going to be waiting an hour. So I found 1 drip of soda on here. I wiped it up. Let's see if any more comes out. The vessel is definitely cool to the touch. Yep, there's 1 little drip. So there is a little bit dripping out through the closed nozzle here. Not much at all, but every so often something drips out. Alright, it's been 25 minutes since I started this, and I am starting to see definite things like solid pieces of slush floating around in here. So there's a lot of liquid, but there is little pieces of slush you can see kind of moving down here. Alright, it's been 35 minutes, and we have a definite kind of line here where it's higher at this end than that end because of the auger. It's definitely starting to look slushy in there. It is too liquid to be a slushy yet, but it's definitely making a lot of progress towards that. On the front panel, I have about 4 lights of coldness level, and they're turning on and off. Looks like I might have had a second drip that joined the first one there, so there was a little bit of drippage, not a lot. It was certainly caught by the tray. It's been about 40 minutes, and this thing is really starting to look like a slushy machine. It still looks a little bit liquidy. I noticed down here I have 2 solid lights and 2 flashing lights. So I think that might be indicating the current temperature. I'm going to see if maybe they go all solid when it gets to the recommended temperature for a slushy. So I've never caught it dripping, but there's evidence that the small drip continues. Now it's possible some of that dripping is condensate because this guy is building up dew or condensation there, so maybe this is water more than soda, but it looks soda colored to me. I'm going to say that's definitely soda. Alright, I'm seeing like evidence of bigger chunks here and there, kind of spinning by. They look larger than the rest of the slush. Alright, we're just about 61 minutes in. Definitely looking like a slushy machine. It's pretty much full here. Getting a couple of drips coming out the bottom. I notice here I have all 4 lights solid, no flashing lights anymore, so I think it's reached the temperature goal. It also beeped at me 3 times, so I think it's time to try this thing out. Notice that there's a little bit at the very back here that isn't really spinning around. At the front we have a very kind of a light white consistency, and it's getting a little darker back here. I think that's probably indicating there's more air up here. We're also very close to the top here, so I want to take some out to relieve a little of that pressure. Alright, that definitely looks like a slushy. That's a hard slush consistency. Feels pretty grainy, but it's pretty good. So it definitely holds its shape in a bowl. I'm going to try it with a small straw. I can pull some through the straw, but it's not super easy. Alright, we emptied maybe a third of it out. It has turned the compressor back on. I think it's basically maintaining temperature at this point. The manual says it can run like this for up to 12 hours. Alright, so I'm just using, 2 liter of soda here. I'm not using any special syrup. It feels more gritty and bigger chunks of ice, more frozen. That might be because I waited until it was completely up to temperature as opposed to like pulling it out a little early. So the larger boba tea size straw definitely works better for this consistency. I've set it to 3 dots, which is 1 less than the recommended slushy setting. I'm going to leave it like that for a while. So they have automatic modes of cold drink, slushy, I think that's a milkshake, a margarita, and like a alcohol drink, ice cream, and the last one here is a self-cleaning mode. So this guy's been running for about 3 hours. There's condensation dripping off. You can see a little drip here. So some of this might be condensation dripping, but some of it I believe is also leaking because of the color. I believe a lot of that's the cola that was in there as well. So it does drip over time. It's not much, it's just a drip here and there, but over time it can add up. Alright, so it's been moving the slushy around in the 3 dots cold setting for about 3 hours now. Let's see what it looks like at this point. So that is definitely much more liquid. So I think maybe just the 3 dot setting instead of the default 4 dot setting makes it more like a slushy. Yeah, so I'm much happier with the 3 dot setting than the default 4 dot setting for the dollar store 2 liter bottle of cola here. So I think really you're just going to have to play with this a little bit based on what mix you're putting into it and find the consistency you like. Alright, let's talk power consumption. With the auger running and the compressor going, chilling things down, this guy is drawing about 170 watts. I've seen, 168, 165, I've seen it hit 180 sometimes. It looks like when the compressor first comes on, it hits kind of 180, and now I think it seems to be backing down just a little bit to maybe 155-ish. Now while it's running along, it'll run the compressor until it hits the set temperature that you've set, the number of dots as the colder it gets. When it hits that, it'll beep 3 times, and then it'll just keep the auger going. Now when the temperature gets too warm, it will turn on the compressor and chill it back down again. So it kind of maintains that temperature. And in doing that, the compressor's running some of the time, but some of the time it's not running. Alright, so the 3 beeps just went off, the compressor's off, it's only the auger. So while the auger's running, it's about, 37, 38 watts to drive the motor. Alright, so cleanup was basically the same as when I was soaping them off, before use. Only thing different is there's, a little bit of soda stuck to this thing. So I actually put the condensate drip tray in, got my sponge with soapy water and kind of sprayed it over the top and really soaked that thing down. Made sure to get in here as well. Then took this out and with a dryer sponge was able to kind of reach underneath and get the whole thing. So this is kind of the only part that's a little bit difficult, in that you got to reach around the back and get all around the rubber seal here. But it's not difficult. You just kind of wipe it down and you're good. And then these plastic things, the soda comes off that, no problem at all. I just kind of rinse it with some soapy water. Pretty much the only thing I'm not pleased with is this rubber seal thing here. It has kind of a spring that holds it in place, and when you pull the lever, it pulls it back and then it springs back in place. But in my opinion, it doesn't quite seal perfectly. There's just a tiny little drip every so often that comes out of it. And you know, if you have pulled this little drip tray out, it catches it and it's fine. It's not like it's leaking, it's just a drip every so often, but it's just annoying to me. Alright, I was pretty happy with how this worked with cola once I got the temperature settings correct. So next we're going to try it with eggnog, and I'm going to be trying out the kind of milkshake temperature setting. Alright, so this is 1 quart of eggnog, which is 32 fluid ounces. That's right halfway between the 22 fluid ounce minimum fill and the 42 fluid ounce maximum fill for kind of like milkshake and ice cream. So I think it's a nice volume. Sugar-wise, on a per ounce basis, there is more sugar in this than in soda, and so it might be a little bit less grainy. There's also all of the fats that come with the eggnog. Alright, it is 4:30 p.m. The eggnog was refrigerated, and I'm going to go to the milkshake setting here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots, I believe. Yeah, it's 5 dots cold, so kind of halfway in the coolness rating. Now at 32 fluid ounces, it's really not going over the top of the metal cooling vessel in there. I believe at some point it's going to start getting bigger as it kind of puts air in there, but right now it's kind of, you know, halfway up in the vessel. So according to the manual with the milkshake, the reference time is 30 to 37 minutes. So 22 to 42 ounces, thicker texture and higher air content limit optimal batch size. It's been going for 15 minutes. It's definitely more viscous. You can see it's drawing from the back and kind of pushing it up against the front here. Still don't have a whole bunch folding over the top of that little metal tube, but it's definitely cooling it down. And it is obviously, you know, going down here and around. So if you tap this light button, it turns on that little LED light that kind of illuminates what's in the drum being spun around. You tap it again, it goes out. So if you push and hold the button for 3 seconds, it beeps and the little light turns on next to the lock icon, and that will keep little fingers from doing things like turning off your device. So every time you try to do something, or push a different button, it does a double beep and this light flashes to tell you, hey, hold that for 3 seconds to unlock this thing. It's about 29 minutes after I started. It did its beeps. The solid lights are here. It says, okay, it's up to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chill level. And this is what the consistency looks like. So you can see it's thick enough that's kind of pushing it all forward to the front here. It's up very high. I guess it's time to test our milkshake out. Alright, it's definitely thick consistency. Alright, so I would call this a very thick milkshake or a very thin soft serve. Now maybe if I'd mixed the eggnog with a little milk, I could thin it down a little bit. But I'd say this is definitely kind of a spoon dessert at this particular temperature and consistency. And it's very rich, made from eggnog. I think you could definitely do, you know, the 32 ounces of eggnog and then another 10 ounces of milk to get it up to the max 42 ounce. So it is possible to suck it through a thin straw with a lot of effort. I think, you know, as it melts, it would get a little easier. Also, I'll point out, with the thicker starting liquid, I've had much less of a drip issue. This is the kind of the first drip I've had for the entire procedure. Alright, so I was pretty happy with the milkshake. I have turned it up to the ice cream setting, which is basically all the way up, so it has to get it colder now. Alright, so the auger stopped moving, and it went beep, beep, beep. And it's flashing its lights at me, and I think it's sad because maybe the ice cream is too thick for it to continue moving at this point. Alright, I tried pushing and holding all the buttons, but nothing would get this flashing everything error message to go away. So I'm going to unplug it, plug it back in, and start it up again. It's been thawing out here for probably 20 minutes or so, so I'm hoping that it'll start turning, and as soon as it does, I'm just going to start dispensing it and see what I get. Okay, we're going to unplug this guy. Wait for the lights to stop flashing. Plug it back in. And turn it on. Okay, thawed out, and it's moving again. Although I think we're back down to milkshake consistency right now. All right, it went beep, beep, beep. The temperature, it got to temperature, and I came over here to fill up a cone, and then the torque got to be too much and it shut off. So I'm not able to dispense because it's kind of stuck there. But the temperature got to where it's supposed to be. So we're going to unplug it, get our cone out, plug it back in, and dispense immediately. Alright, it's trying to turn, but it's not. So yeah, it's too frozen. It won't turn. It turned off again. All right, we're gonna have to let it set for a while. All right. Oh, it's not turning yet. Oh. All right, time for the ice cream cone trial. It's extremely soft serve. Extremely soft. I think as a milkshake and slushy machine, it's fine. Can't really recommend it for ice cream. Alright, second cone is only slightly stiffer than the first. Alright, so for ice cream, I think you get it to kind of this consistency, you put it in a container, you throw it in the freezer, wait another 30 minutes to an hour, and then you're probably going to have pretty good ice cream at that point. So the consistency that came out was kind of close to what you get with one of those ice cream makers where, you know, when it stops turning, you throw it in the freezer and finish freezing it. The difficulty, of course, is when this guy stops turning, it's not able to dispense. Alright, I'm emptying out the last of the milkshake here, and it's starting to do this wiggly wobbly noise. I'm not sure exactly what's causing it. It might just be the fact that there's not very much left in there. I don't like it much, so I'm going to shut it down and empty the rest out, probably just by pulling it out. Alright, so I turned it on the cleaning mode, and it's not cooling at all, it's just spinning this guy. So I guess that's to be used to dump stuff out. I'm just going to fill it with water and dump it out and see how that does cleaning things. Well, dripped a little bit. I think you need it farther over the sink to avoid that. Alright, try it again with a little bit of warm soapy water. This time I'm going to use a bucket to catch things. That works a lot better. Alright, so they say to have it tilted this way so that stuff doesn't come out the back end too much. But you do have to watch out for the tray here coming out. And then I have some ice and my stuff stuck to the front here. Alright, so clean up after the high-fat eggnog milkshake mix. Took a little more effort, a little more soap, but it wasn't unreasonable at all. Alright, overall, thumbs up for milkshakes, slushies. Don't expect it to make like soft serve ice cream. That's a little bit too much torque for it. But other than that, works really well. You know, margaritas, milkshakes, slushies. You just have to get the sugar mixture correct.